Okay, well, welcome everybody. I'm Francis Chow and I volunteer for a bunch of users groups and for APCUG. Let's talk about connecting your computer to a TV. And the technologies for doing so are HDMI, wireless HDMI, WiDi, EZCast, and Chromecast, and variants of these existing technologies. So let's take a look at them. See. Um, all these are my notes for today's meeting. My presentation are here at my website. It's actually the website of the Tucson Computer Society. I moved out of Arizona, but I'm still managing their website. Let's see, what else can I tell you? All right, the summary. This is a one-sentence executive summary. By using HDMI, wireless HDMI, WiDi, Chromecast, EZCast, or an Action Tech Screen Beam kit, you can connect your computer to a television or to a monitor that has an HDMI port. Okay, so let's talk about these different technologies. And I'll try to show you some trends. It's a very interesting when you look at the timeline. I love doing timelines on things to show you trends that you might otherwise not see if you're just looking at one technology or some details. Let's start off by talking about wired connections. Okay, most of you already know about wired connections to connect between a computer and a TV or a monitor. Then we'll talk about some wireless terminology. Let's see what else. Then let's talk about, I'll show you a timeline. I'll then overlay this timeline with the trends. Then we'll launch off into some details. Okay, these are the technologies. And I missed wired HDMI. Because it's so old and tried and true, almost everybody knows about it. Everybody that owns a TV or a later model computer. Let's see, what else can I tell you about? Okay, let's move on to the timelines. Okay, 3 kinds of connections between a computer and a monitor. VGA, then there was DVI, and then now there's HDMI. Video graphics array, digital video interface, and high definition multimedia interface. Okay, what else can I show you? All right, VGA stands for Video Graphics Array. It's the one that's been around about 10 years. Looks like that. Most of you have seen it. And the connector on both ends looks like that. Let's see. And you connect the two together, and you expect everything to work. It's very simple, and it's cheap, and it's been around forever. There is no sound transmitted between your computer and your TV or monitor when you're running a VGA cable. DVI stands for Digital Visual Interface. Looks like that. And those are the options for how the pinouts can work out. So they have a lot of options in there of what signals you send through the connector. And it also does not transmit sound, though sometimes in some proprietary ways they use some of the extra pins to transmit sound. Okay, I tell you about. Okay, it looks like that. Very simple, right? Computers on the left. You have a DVI port on both the devices, and the TV or monitor then accepts the signal. Okay, HDMI, let's see, what stands for High Definition Multimedia Interface. These acronyms don't generally mean much, but if you don't tell people about them, you generally get asked for them anyway. Sound is transmitted by default between your computer and the TV or monitor in an HDMI cable. Whether or not your computer or monitor can deal with the sound is another question. And the conversion between HDMI and DVI is easy because it's electrically the same signals minus the sound. So if you add sound to DVI and you move the pins around a little bit, you have a HDMI cable. So keep that in mind. It doesn't take any active electronics to make the conversion. So A cable that converts between the two looks like that. On the left, we have HDMI. On the right, we have DVI. Okay, let's see what else can I tell you about. All right, when you convert between the two technologies, you lose your sound. So that's not good if you want sound to come out of your TV. Then you would have to run a separate cable to send the sound over to your TV, which people do all the time. Okay, wired connections. Okay, what else can I tell you about? Okay, VGA, DVI, and HDMI generally go between 15 and 22 feet before the signal peters out and starts getting flaky. Okay, so keep in mind that you have about 15 to 22 feet of cable that you can run, including the connectors, including any changeovers, as long as you're not amplifying or cleaning up the signal. Okay, now terminology. Okay, this terminology I got off the internet, and I don't use this terminology most of the time, but it's still good to know it. Streaming stick, a dongle, and SSID. What are these darn things? A streaming stick is anything that is kind of thin and small looking that plugs into your TV or into your monitor, and it has to plug into an HDMI port before someone's going to be willing to call it a streaming stick, and it has to be fairly thin. Okay, a dongle is a small piece of hardware that you attach to a computer, a TV, or another device in order to enable additional functions. Originally, they were used to keep people from pirating software. So that's what so you'll hear the word dongle and streaming stick used a lot on the internet when people are discussing the various technologies for sending signals wirelessly between a computer and a TV. SSID stands for Service Set Identifier, and that's important because that is the name of a wireless access point. Those are the names of the different networks you see when you click on the network icon in your computer. The ones that are wireless have an SSID. And the SSID is created by a wireless router or a wireless extender. Those are the two devices that make an SSID. Okay, so now we've got overall this technology. Let's go and look at some trends. I love timelines. I'm a frustrated history major. In 2007, wireless HDMI came out. Okay. In 2010, WiDi, Intel Wireless Display, came out. In 2013, at different parts of the year, Action Tech came out with something called a Screen Beam Kit. Chromecast was released about the middle of the year. Late in the year, EZCast released their first edition. And then this year, about a month ago, EZCast released their 5G, the 5 gigahertz device. Okay, so those are trends. Okay, that's the order that this technology became available. Now let's look at the pricing and the main features, and let's look at what these things can be used for, and let's look at some kind of a subjective technological complexity index. Okay, look at the pricing. In 2007, you have wireless HDMI, and you couldn't touch it for less than $250 per pair. So it was pretty much relegated to home theaters for people that have a lot of money, and some schools and some conference rooms and corporations. Then, about 3 years later, Intel came out with the idea of putting some of this wireless capability inside laptops and TVs. So basically, this is a chipset technology that you add to TVs and to laptops. Then, in 2013, Action Tech came out with their Screen Beam Kit. It's a device. It has a transmitter for the TV and a receiver for the I got it backwards. It has a transmitter for the computer and a receiver for the TV. So you insert all this stuff in, install their software, and you have a good connection, wireless connection between your computer and your TV. Well, late in the year, Chromecast came out, and it's a Google product, and it was available for half the price of Action Tech's Screen Beam Kit roughly $40. And for $40 this year, EZCast came out with their 5G, which is a faster and more advanced version of the EZCast receiver. Okay. Now, each one of these technologies has its weird quirks and advantages and disadvantages. So here's my one sentence take. I'm allowing myself to write one sentence about each one. Wireless HDMI is the simplest to install and use. You slap it in, it works. If it doesn't work, you take it back to the store and you replace it with another one. For the most part, it works. WiDi. My experience with WiDi is that it has the best penetration through walls. I can go through 3 walls here in my house between a laptop that has WiDi and a TV that has a WiDi receiver. And then the screen beam kit is about half as good. It can go through 1 or 2 walls. And then Chromecast is as good as Wi-Fi. So it's kind of not quite as good as WiDi, but it's easy to use in a home environment because for most people get them already inside the chipsets of their computers and their TVs. It's almost impossible to use in a public environment, and I'll explain that to you in a little while, because you have to bring along your own wireless router to make it work. And then the EZCast 5G is easier to use in a public environment because it bundles in to its little dongle. I'm not using one of the words I told you about, a little router that handles the communications aspect of the device. So in a nutshell, that's my one sentence description of each one of these technologies. Okay, and which one, then the other question you want to ask is, if you only have one monitor on your computer, one monitor, can you use this technology? Or do you have to use it for the secondary monitor of your computer? And the only one that you can use reliably for just one monitor is wireless HDMI. So you're stuck with the most expensive technology. If you're a gamer or if you just like having a lot of monitors, the other technologies work fine for connecting your second monitor or your third monitor to your computer. Okay. What else can I tell you about? We're gonna, let's see. Okay, effect on the existing wireless network bandwidth. Okay, you're probably sitting in a house right now or in some meeting room, and if you're in the kind of a dense suburban area like I live in, there's dozens of Wi-Fi signals impinging on any spot in your house. So you're already losing bandwidth because of all these collisions along the various Wi-Fi channels. And a lot of people you would prefer not to use up some of that bandwidth that's available to them to send signals between their computer and a TV. So for that, you're pretty much stuck with either HDMI or wireless HDMI, but each one of these technologies has a different amount of effect it has on your bandwidth, on your Wi-Fi bandwidth. So wireless HDMI has no effect because it's all wire. It's all on using channels and formats that don't directly conflict with Wi-Fi. Now WiDi reduces your wireless network bandwidth because it uses the exact same channels and similar signaling formats to your Wi-Fi signals in your house. Okay. Now, what else can I tell you about? The screen beam kit uses Wi-Fi in a similar manner. So it uses up some of your bandwidth. It slows down your overall network in your home, which ultimately may or may not slow down your internet bandwidth. Chromecast reduces your network bandwidth significantly because not only does it use the same channels as Wi-Fi, it uses the same routers or extenders. It uses your existing Wi-Fi infrastructure in your home or business. EZCast also does that, but it does provide you an additional router that's built inside it, so it somehow mitigates some of that effect. Okay, wireless HDMI. Okay, at the computer end, you install a transmitter. It's probably going to be about the size of a small person's hand or 2 fingers. On the TV side, you install a receiver. They come in various sizes. Most of them are about the size of 2 or 3 fingers. Okay, and let's see. Sound is transmitted. Both sides you have to have an HDMI port. Okay, and I see if I have a picture of the darn thing. I don't think I do. Okay, now this presentation is my 1.5 2-hour presentation on wireless HDMI. So each one of these things I'm telling you about, I'd be happy to tell you about, or you can read about by looking at my presentation files on that particular technology. Okay, what else can I tell you about? Okay, let's go. What happened? Are we at the end of this? Can't be. There it goes. All right, a little slow down here on my network here. There are four basic technologies that are wireless. Okay, the only one that I'm telling you about today that isn't wireless is the HDMI one. Okay, and I'm not going to include wireless HDMI because of the cost. I haven't found too many people interested in it. Even today, on sale, the lowest I could find it was at $170 per pair. So it's kind of a little too expensive for most people. Most people just throw their eyes up in the air and tell me, I'm going to run a darn cable instead. The cable will run you anywhere from $10 to $30 to $50, depending on how good a quality of a HDMI cable you run. It also limits how far you can go, but most people are willing to put up with it. Let's see, what else can I tell you about? Okay, let's go on. Okay. Okay. Let's see what I can tell you. Okay. For these wireless technologies, on the computer end, with the exception of WiDi, which Intel has to provide you with their chipset somehow, you're just using on your computer side the regular wireless adapter that your computer already has in it, or that you can add to your computer. On the TV or monitor side, you have to insert or purchase a receiver. Okay, and the receivers are what most of these companies are willing to sell you. Some of the smart TVs have these receiver chipsets already inside them. It depends on which TV you buy. You can't guarantee any one TV will have any or all of these technologies. So you have to read the specifications on any particular TV very carefully if there's a particular technology you want. Okay? What else did I tell you about? Okay. Okay. All three of these devices that you can buy for the TV side have some kind of a wireless adapter inside them. I probably shouldn't call it a wireless router. Some of them are just adapters. All three of them also push out through this adapter a wireless SSID to make that initial handshake with your computer. So there's a lot of technology that has been integrated inside these receivers on the TV side. Okay, and I'm mentioning there's 3 kinds of Wi-Fi adapters for your computer. There's one that's integral to your motherboard or your computer, okay? Sometimes on a daughter board. Very popular for laptops is a daughter board. Then the other way you can do it is with a PCI, a PCIe, or a mini PCIe card. Mini PCIe cards are used inside laptops. And then finally, most of us can just walk into a store and buy a USB Wi-Fi adapter. Okay, so those are 3 options. That's on the computer side. See, what else I tell you about that? Okay, so I'm showing you that you're showing this picture that shows that you have some kind of a wireless adapter on your computer side. And on the TVs or monitor side, you have a receiver. And that box on the left is your receiver, which you probably would have to buy. And on the TV side, it connects into an HDMI jack. Okay, so that's how it looks in terms of a schematic. What else can I tell you about? All right, when you use an adapter or a cable to go from an HDMI jack on a computer, that left box should be a computer, to a DVI jack on a TV, you lose the sound. And you're busy running a separate cable for the sound. So keep that in mind. A lot of people have been very disappointed after trying that. Most of the TVs no longer have DVI jacks in them. They only came out for a couple of years. Most of them have gone to HDMI jacks entirely and skipped the DVI jack, so that really helps because then you can get just like guarantee that the sound will work. Okay, let's talk about Intel's WiDi. It stands for Intel Wireless Display. Okay, and about 3 years ago, it won a prize for innovation at CES. So somebody was very impressed by it. And I can tell you a little bit about it. What else can I tell you about? Let's go over the different technologies. Now I'll launch into some details. How's that? Um, the let's see, the EZCast device that just came out has a lot of bugs in it. Okay, I'll tell you about a little bit about that. Probably by going back to it in a few minutes. Chromecast probably is the most popular device for transmitting between a PC and a TV just because it's got the Google name on it and it's very stable. Lots of people love Google and all things Gmail. It's kind of related to that sort of thing. And so it's taken off and sold very well. Okay. And anytime there's been any problems to it, Google has fixed them and issued updates to their Chrome browser. And I'll explain that in a second. And then, okay, warning. All of these technologies are too darn slow for serious gaming, okay? If you're playing Pac-Man, no problem, okay? But if you're doing some of these high-end shooter type games, or some of these games where you're running around getting chased by somebody, you're going to need a faster technology, and you're going to have to stick with wired HDMI. See, what else can I tell you about? WiDi. Okay, WiDi, I have a lot of details about that. I'll probably just tell them to you in this presentation. What I'm trying to do is summarize with this presentation a whole pile of presentations that I've written. So I won't be able to show them all to you today. Last few times I tried to show you 400 slides. A whole bunch of people said they got sick from being dizzy. So we're not going to flash 400 slides past you. Okay. Only cats and dogs can see things that fast. Now, okay, then details are there. Pretty soon I'm going to hit the end and we'll go back and we'll look at some of the details. Chromecast details are at my website there. And the Action Tech Screen Beam Kit has the advantage is that it's a little more expensive than the other technologies. It'll run you around $80, $90, maybe as low as $75. But it's a complete package. Software, transmitter, and receiver all in one box. And it works very nicely. A lot of corporations and schools are using it for sending signals in classrooms and things. So it's a very robust technology. I think I've hit the end on this, so we'll go back and talk about some of these other technologies. And forgive me for not having more slides, but I didn't know I was going to present 2 days ago. All right, what else can I tell you about? All right, WiDi. Let's talk WiDi. In WiDi, you have to follow Intel's rules. It's a proprietary technology. It won a lot of prizes because it amazed a lot of people. But unless you are a hardware engineer, there's a good chance that you won't be able to add it directly into a computer you already have. I tried it and I failed, okay? it, on Intel's website, there's like 20 specifications that you have to meet before WiDi will work. And everything inside WiDi is Intel. So should you be so bold as to put in something that's non-Intel, WiDi is automatically designed to fail. So let me explain what you need. Uh, you have to have a chipset uh, that surrounds your CPU that supports WiDi, and only the higher end i5s and i7s, and only some of them support WiDi. I was very lucky. I bought a WiDi compatible laptop, and it works wonderfully. But it was a little expensive, almost $1,000 at Costco. Okay, now not only do you have to have an Intel chipset supporting your Intel processor, you also have to have an Intel wireless adapter. And you can't have a USB type Intel wireless adapter. It has to be the integral one that's built into your motherboard. So, or on a daughter board. So it's Intel. Should you be so bold as to insert a non-Intel Wi-Fi adapter like a Belkin or my favorite, which is TrendNet, into your laptop, it'll kill WiDi because it detects that you violated the rules for running WiDi. Okay, and then on top of that, you have to have an Intel graphics adapter. And no gamer worth the salt wants an Intel graphics adapter. They want NVIDIA or they want ATI Radeon, right? So that kills off any gamer customers. So once you get all that together, and if you follow all the rules, and you end up with a virtual wireless adapter and a virtual monitor, and that's basically what Intel is doing for you. It's virtualizing all this stuff and sending it over to the Intel receiver chipset, or the receiver. You can buy the receivers as add-on products from Action Tech and other companies, Action Tech, Belkin, Netgear, that sort of thing. And you can then have a very good transmission of your entire screen between your computer and your TV. Okay, so that's my take on Intel and Intel's WiDi. Now, to add to the complexity, in not only did Intel come out with a wonderful system for sending signals, so did AMD, and their system is called AMD Wireless Display. So every once in a while, you'll see a TV or a computer that says AMD Wireless Display. That's not this stuff. So if you mix and match, you'll end up with a system that doesn't work. And AMD also won an award one year at CES for sending signals between one of their laptops and a TV. And it ran rings around Intel WiDi technologically, and they proved it. The only problem is, of all the TV sets that I found being sold on Amazon and over in Best Buy, I only found 3 that had AMD WiDi chipsets inside them. So it's a fairly rare technology. It didn't take off. It's sort of like Betamax and VHS, right? So anyhow, let me see. What else can I tell you about? Let's go on to EZCast. Then we'll end up with Chromecast. Okay, EZCast, their claim to fame is that they'll work even if you're in a public environment. And let's talk about public environments. When you're in a public location, like you're using the Wi-Fi at a college or in a classroom somewhere at an elementary school or in a hotel, you have something called wireless isolation. That means that the routers at these locations purposely block all attempts for you to share files and printers. What's happening is, if you're at a Hilton hotel, which I occasionally go to with my wife's points, and you try to share files between 2 computers that you've attached to their Wi-Fi, or you try to sneak into the computer on the next room to see what you can find out, you'll find out that even if everybody involved is sharing their files, the sharing doesn't occur. This is called wireless isolation. Okay, this is something they do to protect you against from yourself, and all good public wireless locations have this. If you wouldn't want to go into a Starbucks and be able to steal files from the guy sitting next to you. So the wireless router there blocks any attempts to share signals, and the only way you can share signals is by using a sniffer to grab the signal off the air before as he's transmitting it, right? So that makes it hard. Then you can get around that problem by using one of these wireless VPN systems, even some of the free ones, and send the signal off to some place like New York, encrypt it, and have it then pushed out onto the internet that way. So there are ways to get around the problem of people sniffing, and when you combine that with wireless isolation, you have a fairly secure system, even at a place like a Starbucks, unless the company that's providing you all that is crooked and they're trying to work for the NSA or for the KGB, then they'll grab your signal anyway through their routers. So you never know what you're going to get, right? So EZCast, um, they're for a while people thought they were underselling Chromecast, and for a while they were. The 2.45G version of EZCast, which is now obsolete, was sold at about half the price of Chromecast. So people that were buying it thought they were getting the equivalent of Chromecast because it looks just like a Chromecast. Unfortunately, it doesn't do a lot of the things that Chromecast does, and it doesn't connect to the Chrome browser. So now let's talk about Chromecast. So EZCast is a low end and doesn't come with a power supply, so then you've got to go and buy a USB power supply. So by the time you're through buying the USB power supply or buying a surge strip with a USB port, you've pretty much paid as much if you were to buy a Chromecast. But EZCast does have certain advantages because it is less tied into the Google world. So it can talk to things, uh, systems that otherwise Chromecast couldn't talk to. Let me see, what else can I show you? Let's talk about Chromecast last and not, and then let's see. Okay, Chromecast. It came out and it's been selling like hotcakes, and it competes, believe it, against in the same market arena as Roku. Roku is that Linux box, and Chromecast is a uh, sort of a Linux box on a stick. Okay, Roku is more full-featured. It's more of a full-featured proprietary version of Linux. Chromecast is sort of Google's take on how to cheaply send signals from your computer to a TV. Um, Chromecast requires doesn't there's the Chromecast software installs as an add-on toolbar to add-on to your Chrome browser. So if you are running a Chrome browser and you close your Chrome browser, you've killed off your Chromecast connection. So what should you do? Well, Windows 10 has a new feature that the other gentleman was talking about, and it has the ability for you to make multiple desktops. So what do I do when I connect Chromecast to and I get it started up and I connect a TV with it? Well, I don't want to accidentally shut it down, and I want to get it out of my face, right? So I drag it in. I click on the task view button in Windows 10, make a couple of new desktops, and haul it over to one of the desktops I don't look at. So then it's going to run and run and run, and I won't accidentally turn it off. So I've just given you a good reason to upgrade to Windows 10, right? So anyhow, that's what Chromecast does. It depends on the Chrome browser. So any device that has a Chrome browser, including a Mac, can run Chromecast. And the only disadvantage of Chromecast is, like I told you, if you're home, it works wonderfully. It's when you first fire up a Chromecast, it scans your entire environment for the strongest Wi-Fi signal and tries to latch onto it. Okay, it latches onto it by generating its own wireless access point and then memorizing your other signal and waiting for you to do something. Okay, now there's a couple of problems with having all this automation. What if your strongest Wi-Fi signal belonged to your neighbor? I'm sitting next to a guy who runs uh, uh, one of the big nonprofits here in Orange County, California. He has a much stronger signal than I've got in his office. So my Chromecast will keep trying to latch onto his, and I'll have to go in there during the setup of my Chromecast software and my Chromecast device and tell it to not try to latch onto his signal and to latch on one of my pipsqueak signals. Okay, so there are some disadvantages to all that automation. Also, the other disadvantage is that if I take my Chromecast to a hotel room, what do I have to also take with that hotel room? I've got to take a travel router or a regular router. And I can't take just any router. I've got to take a router with WISP, Wireless Internet Service Provider capability. That's basically a router that can connect wirelessly to a hotel or to a Starbucks Wi-Fi at a Starbucks. In other words, it has to be a router that's smart enough to grab and reliably communicate with a wireless router. And 95% of routers can't do that. So now you're talking about buying some specialized routers. Luckily for us, the price for them have gone, for these wireless internet service provider routers, has gone clear down to about $60. And the best one out there is made by a company called Edimax, EDIMAX. And how do I know that? I got on some websites of people that travel a lot, and they got a lot of time on their hands to chat while they're waiting around in airports while their planes are delayed. And I went and started listening to what they were talking about. And I found out that everybody's buying either Edimax routers or some of these portable routers. And I also found out that the portable routers, the size of your hand, overheat. And all these poor guys that run around traveling are running around putting ice packs on their travel routers. So I decided that was too much trouble for me. So you learn a lot listening to people discuss things and, and complaining about their equipment. And I also found out that everybody that travels, their first trip out with a Chromecast and their kids' videos and a laptop, they try to make Chromecast work and they end up calling for tech support at a hotel. And some of them will actually let you through and let you share your Chromecast device stuck into the hotel TV with your laptop. And some of the Hiltons and some of the Marriotts. But most of them will just tell you, tough luck, buddy. Well, the tough luck, buddy translates into you having to bring your own router around. So not only you bring along a little thing the size of your two fingers, you're hauling a router around. And the number of people doing that who love Chromecast is amazing. I found discussions by people with just about every kind of laptop talking about what router they use and what Chromecast device they then use with it. So it's an amazing bunch of technology that started out for these people as a $32 device, and they ended up buying a $80 router to make it work. So it's sort of humorous, but it does work. And I've at the Pomona conference, the Southwest 2015, I took all this technology I just told you about, and I was able to somewhat of a slight panic, demonstrate it all within 40 minutes. So you can get it all working. Okay, there are some glitches. In With Windows 10, you'd expect some of the vendors to screw up, right? When they're trying to make it work, because even the geniuses make mistakes, as you can tell from all the bugs that come out of Microsoft and all these other problems. And first thing I found out was the marketing people got ahead of the engineers, as usual, over at Intel. And what happened is the engineers are working on a fix, but the marketing people are running around telling everybody that WiDi, so this thing that's built into a lot of laptops, will work just fine by default because it's already inside Windows 10. Well, after my 29 installations of Windows 10 for various people here in the last couple of weeks, I can assure you that WiDi does not work in Windows 10 if uh, if you don't if you use the Windows 10 drivers, and so you pretty much have to go back oftentimes and downgrade and locate them on the Intel website, some WiDi drivers for Windows 7 and 8.1 to make this WiDi technology work for Windows 10. And I'm going to guess, but I haven't had time to play with all of it, that the same thing occurs for some of these other technologies, that the marketing people got a little bit ahead of the engineering people again, because that happens a lot, especially under Windows 10's accelerated and shortened development cycle. They weren't originally going to put it out until September or October this year, and somebody in management told them, uh, we're going to fire a bunch of people, so you got to hurry up and get it out. And so they were releasing it a little early, which is why Action Tech's Screen Beam kit and some of this WiDi stuff is right now takes a bit of a challenge to get working. You can't just go to the documentation on it and make it and work from there. You've got to go back to some older drivers. So anyhow, if any of you have those problems, let me know. I'm glad to work through it with you. I've had about 10 of these installations I've had to fight with here. This wireless technology is very, very big right now for various reasons. It seems like everybody has a TV and everybody wants to get a picture that they already have in a computer or a video that's running on their computer also running on their TV. Then you're running into this problem with HDMI, and it has this cable limitation, and a lot of people don't want to run a cable across their living room, right? So then this wireless technology comes into play, and once you put it in, you get rid of this cable, but instead you have this complexity. Now, let me tell you one other thing that I probably may have missed. If you've installed this expensive wireless HDMI, it works. You don't have to do anything. There's no software involved. The first time you install it, you probably have to put in a driver on your computer, or your computer will go find one. Okay? So once you do that, it just works. And when it fails, you throw it away and you buy another one. With the rest of these technologies, and if you go and look at my various presentations, each time you fire up your darn computer, and you can't put your computer to sleep because then it breaks the connection, you have to reestablish these wireless connections between your computer and the TV. So it's not convenient for everyday use, but when you have visitors over and you have a whole room full of people and you want to show them your extremely boring home video to help them rest, or you want to show them some photos of way back when, which probably also helps people with their rest, then this is a wonderful technology because it lets you do things that otherwise you could not do without them. So, or otherwise you would have to spend $200 or $300 to buy wireless HDMI. So it gives you the option of doing some unusual things with that wonderful TV set of yours. Unfortunately, it does play havoc with your ability to shut down your computer. Now, a lot of people tell me that shutting down your computer is for old people like us, and a lot of people never shut down their computers. Unfortunately, this wireless technology is also broken when your computer sleeps or hibernates, so you have to then fiddle with your energy management to keep it running if you want it running for a long period of time. So it's sort of a one-shot thing. It's sort of like I used to set up for a class that I was teaching. I would set it up and I wouldn't be back to that room again for a month or a week or two, or at least a few days. So that's for the price that you get, it's an awesome amount of technology. And there are so many people using it that any problem you have, there's people out discussing it, okay? So you can probably get answers fairly easy on the internet, okay? And then the one thing I forgot to tell you about is the Chromecast. Once you get the first connection set up, any of your smaller devices, your cell phones, your iPads, all the other junk that you bring near it, it'll automatically try to communicate by by sending an ultrasonic sound signal between the devices. It's some kind of a near field signal that only occurs. It bugs the heck out of pets. Okay, it's an ultrasonic signal. It tries to handshake with any other devices. So I hope that after a while your pet will get used to it. Take my word for it. But initially it'll drive them crazy. But it sends an ultrasonic signal and it tries to connect without going through your router. Okay? So once you make that initial connection, you have a lot more flexibility because the Google people put in some real fancy bells and whistles. Okay? So if you think about any of this technology and you want to try it, or if you want to watch me trying it, I'd be happy for any of you out there or for your users group to demonstrate this. And when I demonstrate this, I can provide you a video of both ends. That's another one of the wonderful features of Windows 10. And 8 and 8.1. You can split your screen by dragging the title bar to one side or the other of your monitor, and you can have two screens shown. So that's what I would do to show you how both sides look. This wireless technology involves two screens, right? You've got software or a browser with its own menu running in the computer side, and you've got a screen in the TV. And your keyboard interacts with both of these screens. And depending on what you're doing with what, you're affecting and moving the menus on one screen or the other. So it does add complexity to your life, but it does anytime you have more than one monitor.
Francis, we need to wrap it up.
Okay, in that case, if there's any questions, I can answer them. I can talk to you I can talk to you by email. I can talk to you by Skype. I hope you guys got my email address. I'll type it in here one more time and see if anybody has any quick questions. Yeah, right, Diane, you got to do your homework because there's a lot of options out there, and you can end up spending a lot of money, especially with Apple TV, and not getting what you want. And I had to help some lady with an Apple TV who didn't want to buy one use her printer as a go-between for sending pictures between her TV and her iMac because she didn't want to buy an Apple TV. So there's a lot of options out there that you can, if you put your head together, you can save a pile of money. She absolutely did not want to buy an Apple TV, and her printer is happy to be the go-between. Her iMac will not talk at all to the TV directly. So there's my email, and this presentation is already up on my website. So the URL is up here on this slide. So help yourself if you need it. And why is the main reason people use Chromecast in a hotel to get around Netflix? Well, there are a lot of people actually using Chromecast to cast Netflix, but you can use it for just about whatever you want. If you really want to spend money, buy the hotel's Netflix off of their handheld remote. That really helps the economy. But let's see, what else can I say? Um, yeah, there's if you buy this technology, I highly recommend that you start with the low end and work your way up. You can always give your Chromecast away, but once you start buying the more expensive boxes, you'll feel sort of like you bought the whole 9 yards, the mansion, and you don't want to. It's harder for you to let go of it. So EZCast is not a good deal. I'm having all kinds of problems with it. It's in my presentation. It takes forever to reset, and it's causing me a lot of grief. It has a few advantages. I mentioned that in my presentation. So let's wrap it up, and I hope to Do you have a model number on the Edimax device? Let me see. Yes. Tell you what, I'll send it to you. Okay. There's one Edimax device that's terrible. It slowed my network down to a crawl here at the house. So I'll send you the exact model number. They have some very low-end routers that are horrible, but in the $60 to $100 range, they have excellent devices that travel well. And that's what I actually used the cheap $40 one to make my demonstration. It was such a drag on my home network here, both for file transfers and for internet, that I immediately sent it back within the warranty period, and I bought the $80 version, and it's much better. So ask me, and I'll give you the exact model that worked for me, and I'll give you my rants about the one that screwed up my home network. And then we're certainly glad to hear from Virginia. I've known her forever. She runs the Windows SIG over in Torrance. And what else can I say? Um, so anyhow, I love this technology. It's a lot of fun. So
All right.
I'm going to wrap it up and
Francis,
let
thank
you
you.
all get some rest.